The assistant reminds the Prime Minister that it is only a few minutes until airtime. The Prime Minister orders power to be restored to the entire nation. Then they begin the countdown to a somber broadcast, in which Prime Minister Koichi Motozawa declares a state of emergency and urges everyone to get others around them to watch the television. The Prime Minister's image is broadcast everywhere. He announces the reason for restricting the power supply and implementing strict controls, but he needs a cigarette to calm down. The person beside him took one out for him. A cigarette. Prime Minister Koichi took a long drag, saying that he wanted an orderly end, and that the scenario from the game's survival life is happening in real life. The asteroid Muzambi, which releases zombie spores, is approaching Earth. This morning, the US military tried to intercept Muzambi, but just like in the game's scenario, it ended in failure. Muzambi crashed and impacted around the East China Sea, causing catastrophic damage to the entire region. Unfortunately, the zombie spores turn people into zombies, and are expected to reach the mainland at 1 p.m. today. Fellow citizens, this is an unavoidable situation. Based on the game's setting, the awakened and some special individuals will not turn into zombies. The Prime Minister announced that for them, he had made preparations, such as establishing protective shelters at designated locations, but they will only be opened 1 year from now. Information about early-stage monsters will be distributed via leaflets after the broadcast. Also, considering the Iron Death disease that appears in the game, they will halt all operations of nuclear power plants, chemical factories, and other facilities that could endanger survivors. The Prime Minister then bowed to the people, expressing his respects and wishing everyone peace, and also thanked an anonymous person who had informed them about the apocalypse. Meanwhile, in a dark room, the young man quietly turned off the TV. It looked like he was fully prepared to survive. That's right, he is the last player of the game's Survival Life's Apocalypse world. A few months ago, this group of friends still played together in the game. This clown doesn't want the group to keep losing. By the way, they have already lost 3 matches in a row. This guy criticized the other 2 for playing like idiots, with no strategy. Meanwhile, this guy acknowledged their strength. This remark angered the 2 idiots, who wanted to fight the guy in pink, but the guy in pink dismissed their challenge, giving them a 1-minute head start to farm monsters. As soon as these words were spoken, the 2 idiots immediately dashed off. This is a game set in a post-apocalyptic world, where you fight zombies and monsters in a VR game. Its ridiculously high difficulty became a hot topic everywhere. Large and powerful monsters that can suddenly appear, overwhelming the player's resistance. After a 1-minute challenge, the other guy launches an artillery strike on the boss. By the way, after a year, this is how few players the game has left. It's a flop because it's too difficult. Back to the fight. The archer draws his bow, firing an unprecedented arrow, piercing straight through the monster's head. 2 idiots lay sprawled on the ground, disappointed at losing another bet, and this game was getting more and more boring with no new updates. They started to believe the game would shut down soon. Meanwhile, the blonde guy encouraged his friends to try and enjoy it. They were used to this game, so they were a bit hesitant to play another one. Suddenly, the blonde guy told them to come and look, because someone was chatting in the World Channel. Damn. The whole group got excited. They rushed to guide the newcomer through the first challenges, but just 2 hours later, he gave up because it was too hard. As expected, they really are shutting down soon. I can't understand what the game management is doing. They should lower the difficulty. Suddenly, the guy in pink said he was quitting the game. He simply said, "Good work, see you." The blonde guy thought he would be back tomorrow, but who knew? The 2 idiots looked at each other. Then they both logged out forever. Only the blonde guy remained, reluctant to let go. He played the game alone, live streaming while waiting for them to log back in. Sure enough, after a few months, the difficulty of the initial tutorial had been reduced, but more upgraded monsters appeared, and none of his old teammates had returned. In the end, the game was down to only 1 player, and he was very bored too. But before he could even quit the game, he received an announcement from the developers that the game would be shutting down in 1 week. He once wanted to defeat this thing with his teammates, but now, he had truly lost all motivation. He took off his glasses and pressed the delete account button. Only a hard drive full of memories remained, and he returned, deciding to dedicate his time and effort to reality. His character's name was originally named after a food dish. Taiga is the owner of a small Korean restaurant, and business is quite good. The restaurant is also the first floor of the house he inherited. Taiga does almost everything from cooking to serving customers. Suddenly, a girl named Hoshi dropped by. She is a regular customer and works at the beauty salon next door. Hoshi showed Taiga a news article on her phone. The article said that by simply shouting shouting, "Status window," a system panel would instantly appear. Hoshi had tried it, but nothing happened. Taiga could only say that one shouldn't believe such things, and that Hoshi was really amusing, but after work, he immediately tried it himself. After a few seconds of silence, thinking that there was nothing after all, a panel suddenly appeared in front of him. As expected, the rumors were true. Taiga found it familiar, as if he had seen it somewhere before. Right, it was from the game Survival Life. But that game didn't have a personal dimensional gate access trait. To open this space you just need to say, "Open dimensional gate." Although it sounded a bit weird, Taiga gave it a try. After he said the command, a gate actually opened. Taiga was astonished because it was so similar to the game he had played. No way. If that was the case, he needed to check one more thing. Sure enough, there was an article about an asteroid named Muzambi appearing in the solar system, but it showed no signs of colliding with Earth. Damn it, this matched the game's plot. But Taiga tried to stay calm and not jump to conclusions. His hands trembled, fearing that this was truly related to the game Subara. He decided to go inside, to see if he could find any more clues. The countdown began, 32 days until the apocalypse. But fearing for his life, Taiga found a large ladle. He decided to stick the ladle into that space first. When he pulled it out, he found dirt in the ladle. At least the other side wasn't a maze. So Taiga went to pack his things and prepare a backpack. Standing before the gate, Taiga was still a little hesitant. But when he stepped inside, he was extremely surprised, because this place was a lush green expanse of forests, plants and hills. However, the place was a bit chilly. The phone had no signal. He used a pen to mark the trees to avoid getting lost, then started to look around. This was a vast land, seemingly endless. Suddenly, he saw an animal at the edge of the trees. It wasn't afraid of him, and even leapt over him. It turned out to be a canyon deer. A system panel with information even appeared above its head. Taiga believed that he was no longer on Earth. The deer quickly left, startling Taiga a little. But he had never seen this deer in the game Subara, so it wasn't enough to conclude that this was the world of Subara. He drew his knife. Keep moving forward. He needed to find more solid proof, because if this was truly Subara, it meant the real world was about to face the apocalypse. Quickly, he found a tree that grew sun apples. Holding it in his hand, Taiga took a bite. Unexpectedly, the fruit had a slight stamina recovery effect. His whole body felt re-energized, just like the fruit sold in a game's item shop. There was no longer any doubt. He could only accept the truth. Even though this truth was harsh, the apocalypse was drawing near. Returning home, he immediately started preparing after escaping from the space gate and confirming the world's crisis by reviewing old livestream videos to get a summary of Subara's world. He calculated that the world had 30 days before the Muzambi asteroid's collision caused the zombie apocalypse. Disappointingly, the game's setting was rather poorly explained. The worst part was the Iron Death, a phenomenon that occurred 5 hours after the zombie spores appeared. The problem was, this was a phenomenon that instantly corroded all metals, reverting the area back to the Stone Age. Of course, it would subside over time, but depending on the region, it took 6 months to a year to stabilize. However, the Iron Death, which could be called a catastrophe, was not a major threat to him at the moment. His trait was personal space gate. This was just a theory, but the Iron Death probably couldn't pass through the space gate. After completing his analysis of the early game phase using streaming videos, Taiga bought weapons, food, tools, medicine, and other survival necessities, along with the necessary equipment for self-sufficiency. Meanwhile, while society was in an uproar about each other's awakening, Taiga simply found them annoying and idle. He went to the shop early in the morning. On his way back, he bought a 60-pound hunting bow. He thanked the salesperson but thought to himself, perhaps he was overthinking it, but money that's spent can be earned back. When he got home, he put up a notice of the shop's closure to focus on preparing for the disaster. Taiga sighed, not liking this apocalyptic hustle. Just then, a regular customer, Hoshi, came by to check in. Taiga could only lie that the shop needed renovations, not that it was closing for good. She had thought he was planning to expand the shop because business was booming. Not used to lying, Taiga made an excuse to go back inside. But the beautiful girl seemed to have something more to say. Unfortunately, she also returned afterward. Perhaps Taiga should ask her directly, but he deliberately remained silent, because he will be very busy from now on. His playstyle was heavily tactical, so his melee stat was always much lower than other players. Because in Subara, you can't manually assign stats upon leveling up, but instead they increase slightly through hunting and exploration. Taiga drew the bow, wondering if he could do it. Besides that, He brought a tablet with him to pull up an archery tutorial. He followed the instructor's instructions and prepared to draw the bowstring. He aimed carefully, imagining himself as a character in a game. The arrow immediately spun and shot forward with great force. Surprisingly, it hit the target. Could it be that he was more suited for this than being a chef? But after drawing the bow 5 times, his hands were scraped and his muscles ached. Alright, this archery practice needs to be done daily. Now, on to the next stage of preparation. First, he needed to determine his own monster-slaying capabilities. Second, prepare a hiding place for the supplies. Of course, until the weapons and supplies he had ordered arrived, he wouldn't consider any reckless actions, such as raiding a monster nest. His cautious approach of preparing before acting was the reason he survived until the end in Subara. He continued on, trying to find a goblin's trail, which was a pile of dung. Goblins live in packs, so a single pile of dung was unusual. By examining the dung, he realized something. This goblin was malnourished, probably driven out of its pack, so he decided to go find it to test his hunting skills. Suddenly, he heard a wolf's howl. Perhaps there was a ravine nearby. As he passed by a creek, he suddenly spotted the lone goblin. It looked just like the one he had seen in the game. How disgusting. By the way, a game like Goblin Monster, a low-ranking species that uses spears and poisonous needles. They have a habit of paralyzing their opponents with paralytic venom and then trampling on them. That is why he chose a bow capable of long-range attacks as his first weapon. This is just an old goblin. Then Taiga tried to stay calm and drew the bow. The sound of the bowstring's release immediately drew attention, but the arrow flew too fast, piercing straight through the monster's arm. It was an imperfect shot. Before he could fire a second time, a rock thrown straight at his hand knocked the bow from Taiga's grasp. Its reflexes were too fast, and being cornered, it wanted to fight head-on. And just like that, both of them drew their melee weapons. Then they charged at each other, fighting to the death. The monster skillfully dodged the attacks. It even launched a precise counterattack, the slash causing Taiga immense pain. Enraged, he pinned the old goblin down. Gripping its neck with one hand, he swung his knife with the other. A fatal stab, directly finishing off the monster. Killing the monster earned him 2 GP, but he was more exhausted than he had expected. Suddenly, he noticed a small pouch. Inside contains oil fruit or guaca powder. If he mixes these two, he will be able to create an ointment. But he needs to bury the monster before its companions see it. But if he leaves the corpse here, it will also turn into a skeleton monster. Down the stream there are 2 red salmon. He then remembered a place. It was the owlbear's territory. Countdown 31 days left before the apocalypse. During a live stream, he was talking to his fans about monsters in the jungle, but his loyal fans complained it was boring. Taiga could only say that he had prepared a lot and asked them to please listen. Then a user named Crybaby-kun donated 500 yen to him for that effort. Taiga immediately thanked this passionate fan, but a guy named Gaiden interfered, telling the passionate fan not to waste money, and Taiga had no idea that this donation was the fan's hard-earned money. Taiga cleared his throat and began his talk. Last time he had warned players about goblins, kobolds, and skeleton cows, but the most dangerous creatures in the forest are werewolves and owlbears. Then Taiga continued to talk enthusiastically, recalling that happy time to himself. Crybaby-kun, who always supports Taiga, Gyuden Man, who relates everything to beef bowls, and as for that guy Dago, he always changes his name during live streams, making everyone laugh. At the end of the live stream, Taiga always felt proud of the knowledge he had gained. For some reason, those memories were now flooding back to him. Is this what they call your life flashing before your eyes? Taiga tried to grab his thigh, trying to pinch his thigh painfully to awaken his body, which was cowering in fear. This damned owlbear has a habit of shredding everything when it's hungry, which means that since it's not doing anything now, it isn't hungry. He suddenly realized the reason this owlbear was agitated was that he had trespassed on its territory. There was no other way. He took a stance. He tried to compose himself. While his mind was Norimaki, his body was still Taiga Tsukiyama's. Damn it. If he didn't do anything, he would surely die. The monster swung its claws. Taiga remembered that this type of beast had good night vision, but was sensitive to light. And Taiga remembered its attack patterns as well. He immediately took advantage of an opening in its attack and pulled out his flashlight, shone straight into the monster's eyes. It shrieked in pain. The next morning, the alarm clock woke him up. His whole body was still aching. Anyway, he had managed to escape yesterday, hoping to never encounter that owlbear again. Suddenly his stomach, empty since yesterday, rumbled. leaving him with no strength. All he could see were a few pieces of fruit in his backpack. He crawled over and ate them immediately. The sun apple was still effective, instantly restoring his stamina, but Taiga still needed some real food. After that, Taiga met the girl at the restaurant downstairs. She said that eating together would be more fun. While eating, Hoshi asked Taiga about the status window matter. It seemed that Hoshi was very excited about this topic. There are many rumors about the awakened. Apparently, someone has used their ability to steal cash. Taiga didn't want to disappoint the girl, but he had no choice but to lie that he had tried and nothing happened. Moreover, his trait was spatial gait. That's not even an offensive trait. It's only suitable for him to level up alone. If he revealed his trump card too soon, Taiga thought it was no different from suicide. But why did Hoshi keep asking about this matter? It turns out she had lied last time. At this moment, Taiga understood. Hoshi was still a good girl, and he told her that she didn't have to tell him right away, and that she could tell him whenever she was ready. He returned to find that the delivery person had brought the items he ordered. He thanked the delivery person for their hard work. He took the things he would use later to the rooftop, and the ones he would use immediately to the second floor. Then, he gathered the necessary supplies, including everything for today's activity, because today, he had to complete the task of finding a hiding place. Very quickly, he found a good spot. It was an interesting place. Parting the grass, Taiga saw a cave under the trees that seemed perfect. Now he just needed to check if there were any monsters around. And right at the cave's entrance, he saw footprints going in and out of the cave. Perhaps a trace of kobolds. This is good news. Since these were just low-level monsters, he already had a plan. And this plan was absolutely effective against kobolds, a species that is active at night and sleeps during the day. Then he went to chop and gather branches from the forest, piled them up outside the cave entrance, poured gasoline on them, and took out a lighter. Unfortunately, 2 kobolds came out. They saw each other and were surprised. But right after that, Taiga rushed forward with the axe in his hand. With 2 slashes he took down both monsters. No way was it defeated so easily just because it was sleepy. Because Taiga thought that in his current condition, it would be difficult to defeat these monsters in a single strike. More importantly, he needed to execute this plan immediately. Fire blazed and smoke rose. Then Taiga put on his mask. The common trait of low-level monsters is their weakness against sudden events. Of course, burning them directly would be faster than using smoke to lure them out. But cleanup would be a pain, so he wants to avoid that. So the plan I came up with is, weaken them in a confused state, lure them outside, and wipe them out all at once. Kobolds form groups of 7. The dazed monster, its eyes still stinging, was taken down in an instant. The remaining 3 rushed forward. Of course, they were no match for Taiga at all, even though they had the advantage in numbers. He had plenty of defensive measures against them, simple and effective, and in the end, only the trembling leader remained. He did not forget to be grateful for this important shelter. With the job done, Taiga was exhausted from his depleted stamina. This world status board shows that stats decrease with fatigue, and no points are gained upon leveling up. While not a total waste, he still needed to level up to unlock the shop function. Above all, securing a safe location was paramount. Once inside, Taiga was glad that the mission was truly complete. But there's a lot of cleaning to do. 30 days left on the countdown to the end of the world. Taiga began to clean up. The cave was about 15 meters deep, a bit small and particularly stinky. So Taiga cleaned up while cursing the ugly kobolds. After all, he now had a safe space in the other world. This would be a crucial foundation for all future activities. But the cleanup became more and more tiring. Then, he took a water hose from the modern world, pulled it directly through the spatial portal, and sprayed it straight into this stinky cave. The bloodstains were cleaned, but the floor needed to be hardened with cement. He calculated that it would take a few days. In the cave there were also glowing stones and flintstones. Taiga felt very lucky. Since these items were essential for new players in the world of Subara, he would definitely mine them later. The next day, Taiga felt even more tired than the day before. Many wounds of unknown origin also appeared on his body, but he still decided to save the sun apples. Instead, he tried making an ointment to test its effectiveness. He took the oil and guaca powder obtained from the goblin, mixed them in a 1-to-1 ratio, and simply stirred until it solidified. A decent ointment. It heals minor wounds. For someone running a restaurant, this was a piece of cake. Then Taiga applied it to the scratch on his hand, feeling a noticeable effect. Suddenly, he thought that relying on treatment like this wasn't a good sign at all. He needed to raise his stats through training quickly, or he would die before the disaster struck. Then he wished for a gun instead of these crude weapons. Suddenly, Taiga had an idea. He could get guns from the Russian ship accident. However, that incident wasn't part of the main plot of the Subara story, and he wondered if it would actually happen. Then he opened the hard drive again, wanting to check if the current warning signs matched the story's context. If it's a match, he would have a huge advantage based on his knowledge. He went up to the rooftop to prepare for the planned project. Nothing was missing up here. Then Taiga quickly moved the cement to the other side of the gate. When he went down to the first floor to get the supplies, he suddenly ran into her again. Hoshi came over to greet him. Taiga commented that they had been running into each other a lot lately, and Hoshi honestly admitted that she was the one who came proactively every day. Taiga could only give a wry smile, saying he was too busy renovating the shop to have noticed. Hoshi, on the other hand, found it strange that it had been 3 months, yet Taiga hadn't come to her place for a haircut. It was true, he had forgotten about this habit, so Taiga took off his gloves. Deciding to visit Hoshi, he would have this dashing hair of his cut short. Hoshi was a little surprised, but the customer was adamant that short hair was suitable for a fresh start. Alright, in that case, Hoshi would make him look really cool. But Hoshi also quickly noticed that Taiga's shoulders seemed to have gotten broader. Taiga said it was because he had been working out a little. The girl then changed the subject to the status windows that had been appearing for everyone recently, saying that rumors suggested they were related to a survival game, and the condition to awaken was to have played the game at least once. Hearing this, Taiga feigned surprise. Taiga asked her how she knew this information, but before she could answer, a customer arrived. The man who just arrived said he had brought some information, that the other man had already deleted the old video, possibly wanting to monopolize the information. But they haven't stopped, and are continuing to expand their search for information about that person. But this guy advised Yaka not to worry. Is Yaka her other name? Because sooner or later he would catch Norimaki to extract information for everyone. It was only upon hearing this that Taiga realized they were talking about him. Then the guy even grabbed the girl's hand and asked when she would finally agree to join their group. Ridiculous. Taiga thought that he had never wanted to monopolize the information, only deleting the video out of frustration, while the other guy was touching Hoshi, repeatedly trying to convince her that events were becoming more and more like those in the Subara world. He even complained about why Norimaki had deleted all the videos, while Taiga thought that even if he had left the video up, no one would have believed it anyway. But Taiga was also hesitant. If everyone was that desperate for the information, should he help them? But he decided to stand up and intervene, as it seemed Hoshi was completely unhappy with the touching. The other guy glared and told Taiga, the outsider, to shut his mouth. But Taiga directly told him to get lost, or he would be embarrassed like last time. It turned out this guy had previously clashed with Taiga at a restaurant and had been taught a lesson by him. With no other choice, he could only leave indignantly. Hoshi sighed in relief. Taiga decided to ask for Hoshi's phone number, saying that the other guy seemed dangerous, just in case something happened. After getting home, he postponed his construction work and turned on his computer instead. He searched for information on Norimaki. To his surprise, the internet was flooded with outrage. They were furious that this streamer had deleted all the videos, and even threatened to find and kill him. Taiga decided to write a small guide for new players. In return, he received countless curses right after. Click on this account. He was the one who specialized in posting defamatory posts about Norimaki, and also wanted to find a way to flirt with a beautiful hairdresser. It was more than enough. Taiga had seen the bottom of humanity, but his spirit was still fine. His mind was even clearer. He would spend 2 days working at the shelter by mining glowstones first. After that is mixing and rolling cement mortar. After finishing the work, he went outside to wait for the cement to dry. He looked at the moonlight, and a thought occurred to him. It was to fight evil with evil. After all, he was no hero. All he needed was to survive. As he was about to head back inside, there was a sudden stir, which caught Taiga's attention. It was a bone creeper, and it was extremely enraged. Then it burst into an explosion. 27 days left until the apocalypse. The explosion dissipates. In the smoke and dust, Taiga was still lying on the ground. His hand twitched. He jolted awake in a panic. He didn't understand what had happened. A bone creeper had suddenly appeared. But how had he survived? He had turned and fled the moment the monster was about to explode. Although he had tried to run as fast as he could to keep his distance, he was still peppered with bone fragments. Taiga opened his status window. He saw his stats were significantly reduced, but he had no broken bones, and his internal organs were fine. But to his surprise, he had leveled up. It turned out the credit for the bone creeper's kill was given to him. His head was now a bit dizzy. He then summoned a spatial gate. He laid out healing items on a table. Then, enduring the pain, he pulled out the bone fragments embedded in his body. After that, he applied ointment to the wounds. He then wrapped them with bandages. Finally, exhausted, he collapsed onto the sofa. Taiga knew that if this situation happened again, he would die. So, before going to sleep, he tried to check the effectiveness of the first aid. Fortunately, his stats were gradually increasing again. He was very thirsty, so he went to get some water, wondering why the bone creep had appeared. He probably needed to improve his area awareness to better protect himself. In Subara, there are two main ways. The first is to accumulate experience and practice. The second is to obtain items that increase stats. But Subara is a trash game with an extremely high difficulty level. To receive stat-boosting items, you need to defeat higher-ranking monsters or event-related enemies. That time he obtained the wild skill. Higher-level monsters have skills, and you can obtain those skills if you meet the conditions. This skill didn't suit him at all. Wanting to get the item in this situation, Taiga looked up the old video footage. He searched through the storyline, hoping to find some clues. He clicked on the history. After carefully reviewing the background story, he discovered 3 warning signs. The Russian ship incident was the last one, and before that was the hobgoblin. The discovery of an orc corpse at Mount Chiraku was covered up by the government. He deduced that if he had set out earlier, he would have arrived while the orc was still alive. So, he decided to prepare quickly. Suddenly, Hoshi called. Then they arranged to meet at a nearby cafe. Hoshi noticed that Taiga was acting a bit strange, so she asked him if he was okay. This guy looked more than 20 years younger after his haircut, but his expression was dark, and he was wearing a long-sleeved shirt in such hot weather. Hoshi was afraid that he was mad at her because they had run into Nomura at the hair salon last time, which made the haircut take longer, but Taiga denied it. This made Hoshi happy again, but Taiga asserted that he didn't like that guy at all. He bluntly declared that the guy often bullies other people. This surprised Hoshi. She didn't think he was that kind of person, and Taiga told her to be careful. Then, when asked why she invited Taiga out here, she whispered, saying that she was in fact an awakened person. Upon hearing that, Taiga appeared envious. It's just that Hoshi felt bad for lying, so she needed to confess like this. What a good girl. Taiga was grateful to her for sharing the information, and thanks to her, he got to relax a little from the stress of renovating the store. By the way, he also announced that he was learning some survival skills. Back home, Taiga's mood had improved. Then he ordered a drone to scout the forest, and rented a car to use for the remaining time, and went to bed early to stay in shape. The next day, from dawn, he began crafting materials to defeat the orc. Grinding flint into a fine powder required a great deal of patience, because if you hit it too hard, it would ignite. It was the same with this glowing stone. Its sparks were very harmful to the eyes. Finally, he completed the preparations for the orc hunt. He added sugar, gasoline, and various other organic solvents in order. Mixed the flint powder and resin with a hardener, and then solidified it. Set up a table at the location where the teleportation gate's coordinates were fixed, and returned to the real world. He opened the car's trunk, and was thrilled to have rented a premium car, as it had more than enough room for the necessary equipment. He immediately got in the car, and headed straight for Mount Chiraku. 25 days until the apocalypse. Taiga arrived at the campsite parking lot before midnight in the pouring rain. He took advantage of the early arrival to mentally prepare and review the past battle. Then he rechecked his gear. At exactly midnight, he got out of his car. 2 hours later, he was still wandering through the night as the rain grew heavier. Not only that, he also couldn't see anything due to the fog. He moved slowly, wondering where the orc came from. According to his deduction, it was not near the campsite. After a long time, he began to suspect that these pre-apocalyptic warning signs might not exist. Then suddenly, a loud roar erupted. This strange sound caught his attention. Sure enough, an orc then appeared behind him. It was a red orc, which meant defeating it would guarantee him a skill. Trying to stay calm, Taiga pulled out a flare. He lit it until it flared up brightly, while his other hand reached into the spatial gate. He pulled out another flare, then threw the burning one at the monster. The flare landed right near its feet. The monster glared over, and directly chopped the flare in two with its battle axe. The moment it stopped, Taiga opened the space portal again, then dove in, kicking straight at the monster, while pulling out his last remaining flare. The flare detonated, while the recoil from the dropkick sent Taiga flying back into the space portal. He has 20 seconds while it's blinded to launch the next attack. Taiga charged forward at an incredible speed, dagger in hand, repeatedly stabbing it in the stomach. Just as the monster opened its eyes, filled with fury and pain, it swung its axe, but Taiga ducked and dodged it, and took the chance to land another stab on its right leg. The monster roared and collapsed to its knees. This was also when he took out the red flare, the fire canister, shoved it straight into the monster's mouth. In an instant, the projectile exploded. He was confident that it would die after that attack, but unexpectedly, a punch flew at him, sending him flying several meters away. That was the price for his overconfidence. This was a true monster, still able to fight even with its head on fire. At that moment, Taiga's morale plummeted. Then suddenly, the monster burst into flames, and the system announced he had reached level 3, and acquired the survival instinct skill. That was too dangerous. This main character must have a pretty decent luck stat. Now he's wondering where the dropped item is. Turns out a wristwatch was automatically equipped. This item enhances the cognition stat. But what about this corpse? In the game, this incident was covered up by the government. Should he release this information to the public? He recalled Hoshi's words, only those who have played the game at least once would awaken. That's at least a few thousand people. If even just a few of them, they would wreak havoc on the system and the rules for personal gain, just like that guy Nomura. The likelihood of a riot is very high. Most importantly, this thing will turn into a bone creeper and harm people if left behind. Suddenly, Taiga remembered he himself could also turn into a zombie because of those spores, even though he was an awakened. Unable to make a decision, he opened a spatial gate. He dragged the corpse away, wanting this world to end in an orderly manner for the sake of those who could survive. Then he grabbed a shovel and dug a deep hole. Unfortunately, he was injured, so his stats were reduced, making the work more arduous. But as soon as he entered a state of exhaustion, the newly acquired skill was activated. Stamina and perception are greatly enhanced, allowing him to dig like a machine. Clearly, this skill is quite a cheat, but everything has its price. If he doesn't make it home in time, his entire body will become paralyzed, unable to move for a while. Back in the city, it was already late. According to the plan, he was supposed to have finished building the defensive fence, but a news report about the unusually prolonged heavy rain at Mount Chiraku caught his attention. The package had also just been delivered. Inside were the melee weapons he had just ordered. There was even a Native American wooden club. However, it seemed a few items were missing. It turned out the other items were considered illegal, so they couldn't deliver them. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. He thought it was the delivery person, but the knocking continued. So he went and opened the door. To his surprise, the person outside was Hoshi. She was carrying a bag and said she wanted to talk. This is a bag of tteokbokki, 24-day countdown to the end of the world. Taiga couldn't believe that Hoshi was right in his house, something he had never imagined. This sight made him blush involuntarily. After finishing setting the food on the table, Hoshi told them they should eat together. Taiga then asked her what she wanted to talk about. It turned out that because Taiga had previously said he would go home to research some survival information about Subara, Hoshi came today to ask him to share it. Taiga got his hopes up for nothing. Did he really think it was a simple Netflix and chill? On second thought, the girl was too innocent. There was no reason for him not to cooperate with her in the apocalypse. After they finished eating, Hoshi went to take out the trash, while Taiga went to get ready. He turned on his computer and accessed a forum. He first explained Iron Death disease, that moving in groups of 6 or more makes you easier to find by zombies. And Monsters and I talked about how important cognition is for survival. Hoshi carefully wrote everything down, so cognition is the most important stat. Next, just as that bastard Nomura said, Norimaki was being heavily criticized. Hoshi then asked why Norimaki didn't share information, and Taiga could only scratch his head. Then Taiga asked back if Hoshi had any other opinions. Hoshi believed that everyone has their own circumstances. By the way, she also mentioned that she had rejected Nomura's invitation to join his team. She showed her phone to Taiga, saying she had already met those people. On it was an audio recording, capturing their despicable plot to kidnap Hoshi. Taiga Taiga was furious, and told Hoshi that when the apocalypse comes, many people will reveal their true nature, so she shouldn't trust anyone. Hoshi asked if that meant she shouldn't even trust him. At that moment, he could only remain silent, because the most important goal right now is for him to reach level 10 to unlock the shop. And there's a problem when partying with Hoshi-san in Subara. The level of the monsters that appear will change based on your own level. So if she went with him, there's a high chance she would die a meaningless death. Taiga could then only humorously say that he could turn into a zombie, while Hoshi stood up and performed a flash step in an instant. It turns out her trait is blink, and she did this to prove that she trusted Taiga unconditionally. So if they both survive, she hopes to team up with him. Now back to making the fence. First, he hammered the stakes into the ground. He then wrapped barbed wire around them once. After securing it firmly, he installed infrared sensors in a few places, and the job was completed perfectly. He was quite satisfied, wishing his dexterity stat would increase by at least 1 point. Now it's time to bring in the luggage. He had everything he needed. Now all that's left is to finish the interior with panel partitions. Suddenly he sneezed. This cold wind feels like November in the real world. So he started thinking about what to prepare if he wanted to stay the night. I can't just leave the shop entrance like that. The work just keeps piling up. So he returned and placed a purchase order at a lumberyard. In the 5 hours until the Iron Death Plague spread, he checked for places to visit to gather items. But someone recognized him. This was Taiki, a gym owner nicknamed the Protein Monster. He asked how Taiga was doing and why he hadn't started working out again. But Taiki was also surprised to see Taiga's chest muscles bulging, just from renovating the shop. By the way, Taiki also brought up the rumors of the apocalypse, that there were zombies and status screens appearing. He curiously asked Taiga if she believed it. Of course, Taiga said it was 50-50. Taiki was different. He had actually witnessed a guy levitating in front of him. If so, what was there to doubt? The sad news was that neither Taiga nor Taiki had awakened. The levitating guy said he would go to a television station to make money. Taiki signaled for him to sit back down, then continued, saying that the guy had met a producer. That way, the identity of that awakened person would be exposed. Additionally, there was a shooting incident in Kasumida town. Taiga did not know about this news, so he opened his phone to check the forums. Netizens were discussing a news story about a shootout that had been wiped from the media, suspecting it was censorship and speculating about a coup. This news is also too shocking. Taiki appeared pensive, and went on to say that Kasumida town was blockaded by the self-defense force after a shooting was reported. Taiki thought they were hiding something. Upon hearing this, Taiga stood up. Before Taiki could ask him to buy protein, Taiga had already run off, saying he remembered something urgent. After returning home, Taiga took some time to sort out his thoughts. A shootout in Kasumida town just 1 day after the Red Orc incident, and the breaking news was deleted immediately. So he continued to search for clues on the hard drive. Clearly, the orc's body had been hidden. No one would know about that orc's corpse. But why did the shootout happen at this particular time? But what if someone had provided this information to the government early on, and the government had started to act based on the warning signs, and also provide the traits of a false awakening? He believes someone has been collaborating with the government from early on. There must be someone behind the government. A 23-day countdown to the end of the world. Taiga's suspicion revolved around the 3 veteran players and the creator of this game. After some more thought, he ruled out the game's creator, because instead of being behind the government, it would probably be more accurate to call them the masterminds. If they were behind the government, they certainly wouldn't have let him defeat the orc. Only these 3 guys remained suspicious. Could it be the player with the username Survivor #1? If this guess is correct, then he no longer needs to share information with the government. The more he thought, the more stuck he became. He's just speculating based on character number 1's personality. Maybe he's a completely different person in real life. Anyway, he wants to meet those troublemakers again. Revealing the information can't prevent the disaster, but it can make the ending more orderly. 2 days later, his storeroom was filled with food. Now, all that's left is to wait for the generator. He planned to place steel trays here. Then he realized the space was quite narrow. The basement had been waterproofed, but it wasn't completely dry yet. So, further renovations for this place should wait until later. He still had other priorities at the moment. That was to use a drone to scout the area, which was truly as vast as the Amazon rainforest. Taiga felt that his decision to buy this drone was the right one. The danger would be significantly reduced while exploring the forest. In addition, it would help him map the area. As expected, expensive drones were better. He then used the drone to quickly survey the terrain around his shelter, and found a snow snow-capped mountain to the northwest, where the signal started to get interference. To the south there was the sea. There were no sea monsters here, and food was abundant. He explored the canyon to investigate the ecosystem around the hideout. Fortunately, it seemed there were no owlbears. Then he went to the goblin's burial site and discovered the corpse was gone. The owlbear might have eaten it, but it's also possible that the skeleton had turned into a bone creeper. There were many suspicious tracks on the ground. There were also some goblin tracks. The distance from his hideout to here was 15 kilometers. This meant the hideout was likely more dangerous than he had thought. He had the drone return automatically. He only had 4 of them, so he needed to take good care of them. This also confirmed the presence of goblins in the area. On its way back, he also had it survey the forest environment. It was a swamp with wild boars, deer, and rabbits. Overall, he now had a relatively good grasp of the terrain and creatures of this place. His next job was to personally go to each location to collect information. Then, start with the nearest swamp to see if I can cultivate it. Suddenly, a warning appeared on his phone. It was the infrared alarm from the fence. As expected, these goblins are truly reckless. Judging by the footprints, this wasn't the entire group. About 6 to 8 goblins had come here. Then, he determined the direction they were heading. After that, Taiga decided to follow them. Perception has increased, helping him hear sounds clearer than usual. Then he heard a strange sound. It turned out there were 2 goblins arguing. No, it was a group of goblins fighting over food. Taiga decided to launch a surprise attack. He shot an arrow. The arrow flew like a flash, striking the goblin leader square in the forehead. It died instantly. The remaining goblins were stunned, and then screamed in panic. The second goblin was quickly taken down, but this revealed Taiga's location to the remaining ones. As 2 of them got closer, they were immediately met with his axe. He switched his grip, and used a dagger to take down the other one. 4 of them were down. He advanced as 2 goblins threw darts, but this armor rendered their toys useless. They charged forward. They proceeded to surround him. It seemed they had some intelligence, knowing that ranged attacks were ineffective. Then, 4 of them lunged at him simultaneously, but he was prepared. A flare exploded. Immediately after, the entire group of goblins started vomiting on the spot. Seizing the opportunity, while they were debuffed, he cut off 4 heads with a single sword strike, and immediately leveled up to 4. This was his first time trying to attack while they were debuffed and in disarray. As expected, it's effective. 21-day countdown to the end of the world. How strange. The survival instinct, which didn't trigger during combat, was now activating here. His work efficiency instantly increased to that of 3 people. In any case, this activation was not a waste, because it helped him finish burying the dead bodies. Now it's time to check the loot. He found a guaca fruit that restores vitality, so this is what it looked like before being ground into powder. And there were also quite a few oil fruits. He thought that there might be a place to harvest them. And this is the boss's pouch. Surprisingly, inside was a blue frog, and it was still alive. This frog smelled. Then, a green liquid flowed out from the frog. This was the poison that the goblins used to paralyze their enemies. He picked up the helmet, and began to calculate raising this frog and extracting poison from it. It would make his weapons more potent, and greatly increase his chances of winning. Alright, he would call this useful thing Dakan. The system immediately announced that the poison frog had been named. Successfully forced a bond with the poison frog due to its sleep state. Dakan now belongs to you. He had never seen this forced ownership feature in the game either. Could it have been added when it was applied to the real world? Or, during the final week that he didn't log in, there had been an update? It makes no sense to update the game right before its shutdown, does it? Setting this matter aside for now, he still needed to explore the surroundings more. Taiga continued to move. He then found a crystal clear stream near the shelter. He scooped up a handful of water. It seems to be just normal water, so he carefully noted it down, because if there is water here, drinking water is no longer an issue. But right behind him were the guaca tree and the oil fruit tree, so he managed to harvest quite a lot. As for the oil fruit tree, he left some behind so they could continue to grow. On the way back, he left a trail as usual. It's time to go back. The next day, he carefully put on his protective gear and fed his pet some grasshoppers. Of course, it loved it, made Taiga very happy, and he praised it. This species can only survive in an 18 to 25 degrees Celsius environment, so if he kept it in the base without a heating device, it would likely die. There were many things to do besides taking care of Dakan. Among them, the most time-consuming was making ointment. Taiga wanted to give Hoshi a few jars, but doing so would make him very suspicious. There was a way. That was to give it to Taiki. That night, he comes to see Taiki, and treats him to a delicious drink that Taiki mistakes for a protein shake and praises endlessly. Taiga apologizes for not showing up to practice, which made Taiki feel a little lonely. And this is the gift he brought as an apology. Clearly, it wasn't the protein shake Taiki thought it was. He's even afraid this is one of Taiga's pyramid schemes. But just kidding. Taiki thanks Taiga for giving him information about Subara, and it's thanks to Taiki that Taiga also learned about the shooting incident. However, his gym is too empty. When Taiga asks, he's told that the regulars aren't coming in, as they seem to be busy with their own plans. Turns out, it's the guy who was on TV the other day. Discussed and decided to establish a base here. The number of members reached up to 20. Taiga tried to warn him that it was dangerous, but Taiki had no other choice. After all, they were members of Taiki's gym, so he wouldn't abandon any of them. Indeed, this guy was nobler than he appeared. Then he asked Taiga what he planned to do. Just as he was about to ask Taiga to join his team, a scream was heard from outside. Taiga immediately dashed off. He opened the window. He looked down and saw Hoshi lying on the ground. A moment later, she opened her eyes and saw Taiga and Taiki beside her. Taiki was angry, wondering who dared to attack his former guild member. Hoshi also didn't know who it was. Then Taiki decided to check the situation, while Taiga tried to stop him. Taiga felt troubled. He tried to ask Hoshi if she remembered the attacker's face, but it was useless. She only remembered her vision suddenly going black. Hoshi herself didn't understand either. Taiga believed that the hidden enemy had started to make their move. Taiga reminded Hoshi that next time she was in trouble, she must use Blink, and he would give her a self-defense item, telling her to always carry it with her. 20-day countdown to the end of the world. The ancients once said, in any group of 5, there's bound to be one scumbag, and in the world of Subara, the ratio is even higher. Toxic players often infiltrate parties, gaining their trust, only to lead them to a monster mob to wipe out the entire team. They always show up with a friendly face, pretending to help, then murder their target to loot their items, or they instigate conflict between groups to profit from it. That's how a niche game becomes even less popular. In the end, only 4 players were left, and they caught that bastard. They were also a team that specialized in cleaning up these evil griefers. Taiga figured out that this was the perfect time for these trolls to be active. After the shootout in Kasumida town, the awakened community was united. On the forum, they not only shared information but also recruited teammates. There were also some guys who sold Taiga's videos, but the one selling the video was Help Me, a troll. He even crudely edited images to pretend he was a former teammate of Norimaki. How shameless. He couldn't believe those trolls would think of all sorts of ways to scam others. Anyway, to deal with these people, his only option was to intensify his training. Taiga continued to research survival methods and how to use ancient weapons, along with the strongest close-quarters combat techniques. His videos were all about strategies to conquer monsters, but they overlooked the Iron Death disease. So from today on, he could use them even after the Iron Death outbreak hits, and they are perfect for PvP combat and killing zombies. He brought out a bunch of weapons. All of them were primitive weapons. Only this slingshot is the most useful. He fired a test shot, aiming at the wooden post in front. The shot was inaccurate, and its power was a bit weak. Then he tried the war club. It was suitable for killing zombies by smashing their skulls with a blunt weapon to destroy the spores inside. Besides, once the shop opened, he planned to buy blunt weapons first. But would it also be effective in PvP combat? Taiga then took a swing, then used it to hit the mannequin. It seemed this wasn't a sure decision, but if he encountered a psychic-type awakened person, he would be helpless. But he certainly won't go down without a fight. In Subara, defeating a player is worth 50 GP. Of course, if you're marked as a killer, you'll have to engage in death matches with nearby players. This killer system helps control player killing, but if it's for earning GP, many people ignore the risk and actually go through with it, eliminating players. He finally destroyed the training dummy, but he was too tired. Generally, he would avoid combat until he had enough items and skills. This time, he will completely dismantle the shop and install sensors on the second floor. But why is a wolf howling at this hour? Could they be near the base? Then, he discovered a large gray wolf lying near the fence. He couldn't tell if it was dead. Taiga guessed it died from being separated from its pack, or from an attack. He needed to check the wounds first, but just then, something suddenly lunged at him. It was a wolf cub, Damn it. Is this wolf cub trying to protect its mother? Taiga didn't know what to do. He couldn't take the wolf cub away by force, but he had to bury the mother wolf first anyway. If the gray wolf was a monster, it would become a bone creeper. Otherwise, it would just attract other monsters. After that, he finished digging a large hole. He just sympathized with the wolf cub because it reminded him of his younger self. He also used to have a puppy named Chibi. Having no other choice, he picked the wolf cub up by the scruff of its neck, trying to explain to it that its mother would be laid to rest here, and he would also make a hole in the shop so the wolf cub could visit its mother whenever it wanted. Then Taiga took from his pocket a small piece of meat. In return, it just needed to help him with its sense of smell. How about it? Taiga tempted the wolf cub to follow him. Tempted by the delicious food, the wolf cub immediately wagged its tail in agreement, and from this day on, its name was Dingo. The gray wolf cub was immediately and successfully linked to Taiga by the system. 19-day countdown to the apocalypse. Then he trained Dingo. He instructed it to do a few moves, such as shaking hands and spinning around, sitting down, like this, keeping quiet, staying in one place. Finally, he pulled out a bone. He tossed it up high, and commanded Dingo to catch it. The dog immediately leapt up, and successfully completed its mission. That's right, Dingo is a genius wolf, and even though he's young, his sense of smell is still very useful. While he was cuddling the little puppy, his phone vibrated. On the phone, Taiki told him to search for the keyword levitation. Levitation. In this article, the psychic Maki predicts zombies and monsters, and admits that the game's setting is becoming reality. This article is in the top spot on the front page. There are countless different comments on this issue. Most of them don't know about that Subara world. There are also those who are harshly criticizing that awakened man. Putting the tablet away, Taiga found it ridiculous. They criticized Norimaki for concealing information, but also criticized the person who leaked the information they now knew. There will probably be protests soon, but Taiga would not interfere in this. He didn't know when it would happen, but if the second event, Hobgoblin, unfolded according to the script, the government's moves would surely be clearer. For now, he and Dingo would focus on exploring right away to make the most of their time. The wolf cub was very excited. Among the mountain of things to do, there's a reason he chooses exploring the other world with Dingo. He let it sniff and search for the scent of this bag. Very quickly, Dingo found the place where the goblins were buried the other day. This would help it remember the scent of those goblins. For another reason, Dingo could join the battle. Under its master's command, it aimed for a rabbit. The rabbit only heard a slight noise. A second later, it was already in Dingo's jaws. Now they could hunt properly. Look at this rabbit and its claws. The beasts in this world are definitely stronger than in Taiga's world. Then, the two of them continued to explore. Taiga wondered if it was possible to quantify Dingo's perception. He decided to test it out. As he was heading to the valley, he received a notification that his vitality had increased by 1. Clearly, the current growth rate was far superior to before. It seemed Dingo had found something. It seemed to have eaten something wrong, and Taiga scolded it for acting on its own. He could only give it some water. This was the thing that was making it uncomfortable, but was also lucky to find chili peppers in this world. He announced a big reward for Dingo, and immediately brought out a shovel to harvest an unexpected crop. Then they went to the stream bank. Taiga asked if Dingo saw any strange signs, so it went near the stream. Taiga wanted it to hunt salmon to develop its skills and satisfy its curiosity. But this fish is really big too, and it was soon caught by Taiga. Now it's time to go home. The next day, the restaurant's dismantling was completed. The construction team wrote him a bill and told him to contact them if there were any issues. This place is completely empty now, making Taiga feel a bit lost and lonely, but he had no other choice. He knew that, if he just left everything, it would all be stolen by the people who didn't turn into zombies. He would have done the same thing himself. Suddenly, someone appeared and said that everyone was acting the same. It was Taiki, who had also sold almost all the gym's equipment yesterday. It turned out Taiki was angry because Taiga had ignored his messages. Seeing his owner get flicked on the forehead, Dingo got angry. While Taiki called the puppy handsome, Taiga asked why he was there. It turned out Taiki had only come to see if he was still alive. Of course, there was another reason. Taiki was worried. The one who attacked Hoshi. Taiki knew him. 17-day countdown to the apocalypse. Then the two of them sat down at the table, each with a bottle of water. They ate dried meat and talked. Taiki showed Taiga the group's hiding place, an abandoned lot at the foot of that mountain. Taiga was also surprised by the information this guy had. It turned out Taiki had been gathering information since the incident of Maki levitating on TV. Maki was a gym member, which is how Taiki also knew that she had met Otoda and his group. However, that group only had inappropriate interests in women, so he refused. After the incident with Hoshi, the female members of the gym now want to leave them. They had been invited to an awakening party. Taiga understood that they had taken the bait. In Taiki's group, many members have left, with only 4 people remaining. The gym owner also understood because, after all, this group only has 2 awakened people. Taiga was a bit disappointed in them, while Taiki was sympathetic, believing that's how everyone's separate paths are created. Taiki was also worried about his daughter, wondering whether he should call his ex-wife. Taiga wanted to ask something, but this friend understood what Taiga was about to ask. He firmly stated that he would kill zombies even if they were once human. Although Taiga has a principle of not harming people, it's necessary to break that principle to eradicate evil. Taiki found it strange that Taiga would ask such a thing. It was really unlike his usual self. But at that moment, a warning alert appeared on the phone, on which a warning signal was recorded. Taiga's face darkened. He told his brother to hold the dog for him. It turned out that Hoshi had pressed the emergency button. Nomura and the bastards in the group were blocking her way, urging Hoshi to come down. Hoshi stated that she had already refused, but they kept bothering her. But this time, they would be more forceful. Itoda, the group leader, declared that the girl should come down while they were still in a good mood, and that this was a redevelopment area so no one would come, and that they all had their own traits that shouldn't be underestimated. Meanwhile, Taiga was hiding in an alley. He would attack from a distance with this slingshot. The bullet was fired with great force, aiming straight for the leader. It hit him right in the armpit. He collapsed, dropping the baseball bat. But before Nomura even knew who had attacked, Taiga had already charged in, landing a blow with a wooden mace right on his chin. Then very quickly Taiga turned around, while the other guy activated a purple energy hand. But his swipe was too slow. Taiga immediately countered with a mace strike to the back of his neck, knocked him into the wall. He thought it was over. He then checked on Hoshi, but she warned him about what was behind him. Sure enough, the leader regained consciousness and attacked him. The blow broke his helmet's buckle. Taiga couldn't believe his glancing blow was that strong. This was too unfair, as it was still early in the game. His 2 henchmen had also gotten back up. Immediately, Nomura activated his trait. It seems he possessed Chidori in both hands. Taiga was just surprised that this guy wasn't hiding his abilities at all. Taiga began to wonder whether to use the spatial portal. Then Nomura charged forward, but at that very moment, Dingo appeared and bit down on his hand. Everyone was stunned. Taiki also appeared and announced that he had called the police. With no other choice, Atado could only tell his men to retreat before things escalated. Taiki cursed at them, calling them a bunch of posers. Hoshi blinked down below, and rushed to ask about Taiga's injuries. Fortunately, the only thing that was cracked was the helmet. But Taiga suddenly realized these 2 resembled 2 of his friends from the game. Hoshi wanted him to go to the hospital, but he said he didn't have time. Then, Taiga asked Taiki if he could invite Hoshi to join the team. Hoshi was more than willing to join. Then Taiga and Dingo hurriedly left. The 2 of them didn't understand what was wrong with him. Upon returning home, Taiga immediately started building. There was a reason why Taiga left in such a hurry. It was because they gave him a sense of familiarity, as if he could tell them all his secrets. After the battle, Taiga also realized he needed to level up quickly to take advantage of the Spatial Gate's privilege and unlock its features, using the power of items to fight against others. If he followed the plan, he would be able to create a gap between himself and those around him. That would also come with a drawback. The monster's strength scales with the leader's level, which would make things difficult for Hoshi and Taiki. He was so engrossed in his work that he lost track of time. Finally, the fireplace for sleeping was completed. Happy, Dingo immediately rushed over and slept soundly. Once this batch of equipment arrives, the work will be finished. He decided to pull an all-nighter to get the work done. Countdown, 16 days until the apocalypse. The TV continues to update Muzambi's position. The asteroid shattered due to Jupiter's gravitational pull, causing a miscalculation, and is being tracked by the HSA. Thomas Chandler confirms that the asteroid Muzambi has split in 2, and poses no threat of crashing into Earth. In the game, before the apocalypse descends, it was supposed to fall right near the Russian ship. That tsunami swept the ship to Japan, and that's how zombies started to appear in this country. At first Taiga felt something was off, but now everything makes sense. After the shooting, Prime Minister Motozawa has not appeared at the official residence for a week. In response, opposition party representatives issued a joint statement to clarify the truth, announcing they have agreed to hold a questioning session for the Prime Minister, because they thought he had some kind of connection with the awakened ones. Taiga believed that this mess on TV was good anyway. The more sensational the media coverage, the less criminals would dare to run rampant. He opened his laptop again to check the community's reaction. They were saying that the end of the world would truly come, and Muzambi was the real threat. Suddenly, he discovered there was a player recruitment post from the My Dream Guild. He was a famous player, known for his kindness to new players, and was the person we had contacted a few times. And he also announced that he had built a shelter, and called for the last 4 players to contact him via G-code to survive together. Aren't the last 4 hardcore players Taiga's group? But he only carefully saved this news report just in case, and had no intention of meeting him yet. Now let's go finish the hideout. After staying up for 2 consecutive nights, he finally finished it. Everything is in perfect order. It helped lift his spirits, even though his whole body wanted to collapse into sleep. But there is one challenge. Using electricity from solar energy is more complicated than he imagined. First, I convert the direct current into an alternating current. It goes through many processes, and finally, it can be used in regular electrical appliances. Taiga nervously tried to charge his phone with the electricity. Sure enough, it worked. He trembled with joy, because he had successfully built the foundation for survival in another world. This was a cause for celebration. He closed the door to the room. Now, he examined what he had dug up from the same spot as the glowing stones. It was a strange mineral, harder and sharper than even a glass bottle. It was emeras. He didn't know how to use it yet, so he just left it in there for now. Then he thought about installing some LED lights here. Suddenly, he heard a noise outside. Dingo was barking loudly. When Taiga ran out, he was also surprised, because the visitors were the pack of maned wolf monsters from Subara. Why are the monsters that live on the plateau here? Could it be that they killed Dingo's mother? Taiga tried to tell Dingo to calm down. If he turned his back to get his weapon, he would be torn to pieces. There's no way to beat them right now. There's only one way, which is to drive the pack leader away, and the rest will leave on their own. Because crest wolves are very cautious. First boss attacks, and after judging it's safe, they have a habit of launching coordinated attacks. Also, wolves naturally dislike strong smells. Fortunately, in his pocket, he have the pepper spray I used on kobolds. He will aim it at the pack leader. But if the scenario changes, he needs to block its attack first. I've got it. He decided to throw the knife at the wolf first. It jumped aside to dodge the attack. Taiga had angered it, so it pounced, aiming straight for him. At that very moment, a portal opened up to block its attack. Then he pulled out a can of pepper spray, spraying it directly at the wolf. The dazed wolf vomited, but it wasn't over yet. Taiga directly stabbed one of its eyes with a knife, then cleanly jumped back, and successfully drove the entire wolf pack away. Damn it, so tired and scared. Dingo immediately ran over, thanking his master with head nuzzles. He promised that he would definitely help it get revenge. 15-day countdown to the apocalypse. After finishing organizing the basement, he immediately headed to the hardware store and pharmacy because he wanted to sleep after arranging minimum defenses. The crest wolves, coming at such a busy time, had left Taiga nearly sleepless for 3 days. Still, he was lucky because if they were werewolves, he wouldn't have been able to handle it so cleanly. Thinking back, he realized he had been careless, as he had been focusing solely on the monsters. At this rate, he should conduct more ecological surveys with drones and expand his territory to build a shelter. Suddenly, Taiki and a girl standing across the street saw him. They called out to him, but Taiga didn't notice, as he was still thinking about digging a moat to reinforce his defenses, and adding Bluetooth communication devices to expand the range. The two then greeted each other. Taiga said he was going shopping, but Taiki suspected he was going to buy weapons. It turns out they weren't the ones buying weapons, but a member of Taiki's group. Taiki happened to find her at a hardware store. Since she was a gym member, Taiki advised her not to buy it, but the girl didn't believe him. Apparently, they don't believe Taiga's early game guide that the iron death disease will turn iron into ash. But why does this girl keep staring at Taiga? It seems she knows Taiga as well. After thinking for a moment, the girl said that he was the owner of the Korean restaurant, although Taiga's demeanor had changed a lot. Then she took out a name card, gave it to Taiga, and introduced herself as Shizuku. And what's more, she turned out to be a doctor. After that, Taiga relayed the basic information about Subara to her. This skeptical girl thought that something was still off. It seems a scientific approach to this game is impossible, and she also wanted to ask if Taiga was also an awakened, just because his explanation was too clear and detailed enough, but Taiga immediately denied it. Shizuku thanked him for the helpful guidance, and Taiki was a little sad because he had also said the exact same thing, but the girl countered that the depth of Taiga's story was much greater. This girl came in, excitedly, wanting to ask Taiga to continue helping them. Cut to the next day, he was attaching the spearhead to the shaft. It looked quite decent, meaning the preparation of the main weapon was complete. Then he called Dingo over, saying that the time had come to avenge its mother. Of course, the deeper objective was to eliminate anyone who knew about this hideout. Before setting off, Taiga encouraged Dingo, telling it that he was counting on it. A while later, they found the wolf pack, but there were only 4 of them. I wonder where the boss wolf has gone. Damn it. The boss wolf was killed by the owlbear. In that case, this wolf pack is too easy to handle. Without a pack leader, they will lose their coordination. As soon as he turned his back, one of them charged forward. It was quickly caught in Taiga's trap, and whimpered in fear. Taiga quickly put it out of its misery with a single spear thrust. The 3 remaining ones took notice. Seeing Taiga run away, all 3 of them immediately charged forward, while Taiga hid behind a boulder. He used tear gas to take out the first one. The 2 remaining creatures then flanked him. Quick as a flash, Taiga thrust his spear, taking down one of them. As for the last one, Dingo charged out and attacked with a tackle. The 3rd one was defeated. He ordered Dingo to stab it to death. He also happened to reach level 5. Additional effects were added to the trait. The spatial gate gained an invisibility effect, and the ability to see and hear through it. Taiga then summoned the gate. As expected, he could see through it into a space inside the gate, and it was also invisible. Now, he no longer thought his spatial gate was like a dungeon gate. The new effect at level 5 could become even stronger in the future. Indeed, leveling up was very important, so he would not miss the remaining warning signs. But there are still so many things to do first. First, we have to bury these monsters. 14-day countdown to the apocalypse.